Workplace 2020 poses to leadership practices and management practices. And no, not really. The challenge is not centered around managing the 20-year-old, the millennial, about whom reams are being written. The challenge is about managing the millennium itself. I believe that three major challenges in managing the workforce of Workplace 2020 are going to be technology, health, and not the least, performance management. So the first workplace challenge is the one posed by technology. While tech tools are available for collaboration and for a real-time exchange, today technology is posing a significant challenge to human interaction and to a personal interface. It's also going to reduce sensitivity in customer management while making people-centric services more expensive. So technology is going to do the human being's work. It's going to reduce sensitivity of the human being in that personal touch in the customer interface. And the person who's at work for this interface is going to cost corporations much more. What, therefore, is going to be the impact of this on competitive edge of businesses and organizations? Secondly, the challenge of technology is no longer, nor will it continue to be, the existential HR dilemma of saying, isko social media ka access dena hai, Facebook ka access dena hai, ya nahi. But I think we have to manage the excess, not the access of technology. The second challenge is one of health, right? As fitness routines become a routine casualty of long working hours, as lifestyle-linked diseases rise, as India rules as the world's epicenter of diabetes, as the number of people who will encounter cancer in their own body or in their lives rises in our country, will organizational practice change to accommodate this? Am I going to be sacking people who fall sick? Am I going to be giving them long leave? Am I going to be paying them while they're on long leave? I don't know. I don't really have the answers to all of this. But I do think about it, and it worries me, as we move forward. The third challenge is that of sustaining performance management. In a workplace where technology tools are poised to take over performance management systems, the first impact is on performance dialogue. Do I have the ability to sit down someone and give them a dialogue on their performance, engage them with a dialogue one-on-one? Workplace 2020 is defined as being more global. It is also defined possibly as being more geographically dispersed. How then will this performance dialogue take place? Or is it simply going to be numeric? If it's going to be numeric, then a whole host of success parameters which are softer and not numeric are going to get eliminated.
Thank you so much, Geetanjali, for setting wonderful context to the whole theme that we have as a next talent equation. How do you think, what are some fundamental changes that you see of how we manage people in a future of workplace? How is that going to fundamentally change? What are some 2-3 areas that we need to just, completely redo?
I think this is bringing in an environment of frenemies. And frenemies are friends and enemies. So the same guys you are competing with and the same guys you are befriending, right? And this is a very typical thing that is going to hit a large amount of businesses, because there's no point trying to build wasteful expenditure around areas where you do not get a competitive edge, right? For example, telecom led this bandwagon in India. Towers are not what are going to give us an advantage, so let's share towers. Right? Passive infrastructure is not going to give us advantage, so let's share passive infrastructure. Right? I, collaborate with the same guys that I fiercely compete with. Is Google going to win the war versus telecom operators, or telecom operators are going to get an edge over Google? I think the world is such a large space that it's not him or him. Is Google going to win the war versus telecom operators, or telecom operators are going to get an edge over Google? I think the world is such a large space that it's not him or him. It is both. I think if you start competing, come to some sort of an agreement, a new business model, you'll find ways to survive in an environment that will build frenemies. The next big big change, and I think you talk about it to say these millennials and how do we deal with that, but I don't see that as a challenge. The challenge that I see is that we are moving from experience to relevance, and that's a big change that's happening. This relevance thing, and are you willing to give up? Are you as organizations going to say both will survive? There are some jobs that will require experience, but most jobs will require relevance as you go forward. And if X is relevant, he's relevant, no matter he has experience or he doesn't have experience. Are you ready for that? If you don't do it, somebody else will do it. That's how things are changing.
What are your thoughts on how fundamentally you see we are going to be changing in the future?
Sanjay's more or less covered everything, except a few things, especially since everyone's an HR person out here. I think the role of the HR person also needs to be looked at. You'll have to give up your regular grading, HR, 360 degrees, all of that, and become more strategy and business managers. Simply put, because the industry is changing so rapidly, and like Sanjay mentioned, the shelf life of technology is now getting shorter and shorter. But the shelf life of not just technology, even organization structures is getting shorter and shorter, because the business are just evolving so quickly. New things are happening every 3 months, 6 months. You never thought of an idea, and now it's germinated into a business. You need to rewrite your structure. I'm constantly getting confronted by individuals who earlier used to ask me maybe in 3 years or 4 years that what's next for me. Now the same individual in 6 months is saying, okay, what's next for me? The appetite to grow and the ambition to grow is very good, but you have to have answers for that. And I think the business head and the HR head have to be so deeply entrenched in the strategy and how the business is growing. Otherwise, we'll be left with literally no answers for anyone. What's also becoming critical, and this is from my experience, is that we were giving too much importance to functional skills and backgrounds. I think I personally am now giving equal weightage to attitudinal attributes as much. Meeting a person and trying to assess whether he's got the fire in his belly. Is he flexible to make course corrections every now and then? Or does he come in saying that I've done this for 10 years, I know how to do it, and I will do it for you as well? I think that's not a guy for me. I'd rather have a guy who says, I don't understand this, but I'm willing to make an effort and learn. So attitudinal skills, flexibility in our all structures, getting people to be focused not on functions and roles, but on tasks, and building reward and recognition plans around smaller tasks so that you keep them engaged seems to be working.
प्लान्स तो बहुत हैं, बट हाउ डू आई सक्सीड?
एमबीए तो कर लिया, अब जॉब का क्या? मैं कुछ बनना चाहती हूँ, बट उसका रास्ता क्या है?
आज की युवा पीढ़ी में बहुत कंफ्यूजन है। आपके मन में लगता है कि आपके प्रश्नों के जवाब देने वाला कोई नहीं, तो आइए मेरे साथ मेरे शो में मैं आपको रास्ता दिखाऊंगा।
डॉक्टर सुभाष चंद्र शो शनिवार शाम 7 बजे और रविवार सुबह 11 बजे।
I love competing. I love racing.
I'm world champion.
I'm quicker than all of you.
And let's race.
Nicky Lauda and James Hunt side by side.
एशियन पेंट्स इजी कलर को कॉल कीजिए और आसानी से चुनिए किस दीवार पर कौन से कलर्स और डिजाइन्स बेस्ट लगेंगे।
इतने सालों से इस घर ने हमें कितना कुछ दिया, सोचा जाते जाते इस घर को एक रिटर्न गिफ्ट देते जाते।
छोटे, आपको इनके फ्यूचर के लिए कितना SIP करना चाहिए? इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड में निवेश के लिए राइट सिस्टमैटिक इन्वेस्टमेंट प्लान अमाउंट जानना जरूरी है। www.icici-mf.com।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
हाँ तो भैया कितना जमा करें ना? जेवर और कैश कुल मिलाकर 15 लाख तक की तो मैं हेल्प कर सकता हूँ।
15 तो जरा लोअर साइड पे है।
15
राउंड फिगर 40 कर दी।
बहुत इंसल्टा सुन ली, अब उन इंसल्टों का बदला लेंगे।
मैं आसानी से नहीं छोड़ूंगा उस चुड़ैल को।
car-dekho.com। न्यू कार हो या सेकंड हैंड, करो कंपैरिजन, गेट ऑन रोड प्राइस। कार खरीदो तो
सुनो नहीं, देखो।
car-dekho.com।
You touch, it tells. T-Touch Expert with tactile technology. T-Soap.
When you look at the employer brand, especially large organizations like both of you, which have good presence in the B2C market, the employer brand is sort of merging together with your market-facing positioning. So, where does in the future the custodian of the employer brand or the talent brand resides? Do you see that as a role coming up? Clearly with the CEO, or do you see, some kind of a shift happening in who owns this piece? Because unless we don't brand ourselves, I've sort of referred to a study, it says you save 50% of the cost per hire if you are perceived as an employer of choice. So, where do you see is the focus? Is that a CEO agenda? Is that the HR head's agenda, or the marketing head's agenda?
So I think that's a great question, and the way I see it is that like the organizational brand creation is a 360-degree activity. It's not an activity of products, it's not an activity of communication, it's an activity of a lot of things that are put together. It's the organization reputation, it's the people who work for the organization, it's the practices, governance, credibility that it follows. It's then the products and services that it has, the communication that it makes, the target segments and evangelists that it ties up with, influencers that it works for. So I think there's a complete ecosystem that creates a brand. I would put the responsibility on the top echelons of the organization, which are to be headed by the CEO, and then the CXO owns it as well. And then they get their guidance from the board, from the chairman, to make sure the HR remuneration committees give them the guidance that is required. But they need to be the custodians whose necks need to be on the chopping block if the brand, including the employer brand, was to go. I don't think the two are separate. I think they are the same.
I think the two are, you can't really segregate them. From my point of view, the team leader is the one who decides the culture of the organization. If the guy is himself not passionate about the business, you can't expect the culture in the organization to be passionate. So it starts and ends with him. And I think that's where this entire focus needs to be.
Look at the role of HR. In the past, for instance, the employer brand, we've been looking at it at two different products. Marketing is the custodian of the business, and the talent brand is the pie of the HR guy to look after. Of course, CEO would be reviewing it. When you see the HR's role, and clearly what you're saying and what resonates with a lot of us is there are fundamental changes, and people and talent are at the core if you were to take the next leap, right? What areas do you see HR, as a business partner, to your experiences, have probably not done so well, and we need to, relook at and focus on some areas where we probably are not so good at? What do you, can think of areas that HR has not been able to do well in your personal experience?
Since you've given me the tough one, but okay. Listen, one of the things that I'm facing or constantly getting faced with is, and maybe HR needs to play a role there as well. The problem isn't with the middle management and the junior management. The problem is really with the senior management. and I'll tell you why and what I mean by that. By the sheer fact that we come in with a lot more experience, we also come in with a lot more baggage. In a new age industry which is so rapidly changing, where the average age of the team is anything between 25 and 30 to be max, the culture that you have to build is not a culture that has to be built purely driven by processes, hierarchies, grades. It has to be built by more informal mechanisms. Getting a team leader or a business head to stop behaving like a business head, I think is one of the most important things to do. Most bosses need to learn how to not be a boss, to be honest. And everything changes.
So, I agree with what Sundeep is saying principally, but can draw a little differentiation on my thought process on what I think when I look at HR people, and I am not reflecting on any individuals, but by and large when I look at HR fraternity, what I see missing or what I would want them to do which they don't do as well. I think to me, human resources has always been in my mind a line function. It has never been a staff function. I think they need to really draw this equation with the with the CEO or whosoever, with the board, and actually have this open dialogue to say, guys, if you want me to do a staff job here, what's the excitement? There's no excitement. I should be a person who should make a direct impact on the profitability of this company, on the revenues of this company, on the new business associations of this company. And if I'm not going to play a role there, I'm wasting my time. I truly believe it's wasted time, because then you relegate yourself to becoming a coordinator. I think that's one fundamental problem that's there. The second issue that I see with HR guys is that somewhere when things don't happen, somewhere when there are gaps, they try to be on the wrong end of the stick and get the blame for everything on people's side without any rhyme or reason. And it's got a little bit of association with what I said earlier. So I believe at the end of the day, the people who can make a difference to the organization's culture, HR practices, are truly the operating guys and the line guys in the organization, right? The so-called business guys. I think most HR does not play a role to develop operations managers and business managers to becoming good HR managers. I think that facilitation role, that evangelist role doesn't happen. Instead, they start performing that role on their behalf. I think that weakens an organization, because in an organization, if 5 people, 6 people try to take the load of 13,000 people, 14,000 people, it's never going to happen.
इस हफ्ते मोबाइल्स एंड गैजेट्स में एप्पल के लेटेस्ट फोन्स आईफोन 6 और 6 प्लस के की फीचर्स, माइक्रोमैक्स की नई ऑफरिंग, नाइट्रो का डिटेल रिव्यू, साथ ही नजर डालेंगे इस हफ्ते के कैमरा ऐप्स पर। तो देखना ना भूलें मोबाइल्स एंड गैजेट्स आज शाम 4:30 बजे।
DJN Jewelers presents a glittering range of exquisitely crafted gold and diamond jewelry. Traditional, exquisite, graceful, glamorous. DJN Jewelers, shining happiness.
Let's hurry. Remember, there's no electricity for miles.
Solutions for a positive transformation. Kirloskar, enriching lives. CarDekho.com. New car हो या second hand. करो comparison. Get on-road price. कार खरीदो तो
सुनो नहीं, देखो.
CarDekho.com.
सैंड्रो बेंज, जो दिखे औरों से अलग।
take a few questions from the audience. I'm sure a lot of you would be wanting to ask.
When you look at Indian organizations or Indian MNCs or any other league which is not the new age organization but the traditional organizations, do the CEOs have an appetite, or does the senior management team have an appetite to think differently and hire based on relevance rather than experience? Because everywhere you see, even if a CEO is actually, let's say, hiring a head of HR, he will go by so many years of experience, relevant industry, and that's where it creates a sort of a bottleneck. So I would like to have your views on this.
This relevance thing versus experience thing is a gospel that is catching up across the organization, and more people are imbibing this. To walk your talk is not easy, but you need to build a culture where people must be able to shake somebody's collar if this doesn't happen, right? To say, if I have a job and I think X guy is more relevant, don't get into the hold of, why, but a lot of people will come back to you. The question is not this. They will agree for probably a relevant guy. The problem comes when you have to compensate that guy. To say, how do I now pay him a salary which is different? I think that's the bitter truth, or the bitter pill that you have to swallow. And if you can make that happen in your organization, then you've succeeded. Otherwise, what will happen is older people will get replaced by younger people and at lesser salaries.
My problem right now is that we hire people from IITs every year. They stay with us for 4 years, max 5 years, and all of them have a dream. They go out within 5 years, they set up on their own, and they are successful. Some of them have not been successful. Fortunately, touch wood, they've come back to us. Yeah, but these numbers have doubled. Analytics says so. These numbers have doubled in the last 2 years, which is a problem for us.
So you obviously have a lot of dilemmas, but they're very similar to what we have, huh? It's not just one thing. You come from a manufacturing background and you're saying analytics is difficult. Imagine a television company. How do you do analytics there?
This plethora of data.
No, there is no data.
There is surrogate. It's one-way communication.
Yeah. How do you tell an anchor that you have sold a product on television very well in this hour? Correct. You need analytics, right? So just imagine what we are going through. Similar dilemmas.
There is a great need for creating an entrepreneurial culture. So how do you think that you can create a good entrepreneurial culture at the workplace, and how can you facilitate that? Some views on that.
Entrepreneurs are uncertain of all. I mean, if you're asking me a question, very difficult to have all the answers out. Even the consumers are uncertain. All the more reason guys coming out of universities and institutes are also going through that phase, right? So this is, I mean, you can look at it whichever way. This is a very, very exciting phase. It's a phase where you can take your chances now, because the ecosystem of investors, society, your parents, and prospective future employers all are looking positively at you being an entrepreneur.
Referred that they had so much of rapid changes, retail coming in, then online space, TV, shopping. So what do you think is the age of these businesses? Because every time you have an idea, there's a new thing coming into the the space, and the talent need changes. So are we ready for such rapid changes which is happening, and how we need to deal with this?
With a lot of stress, but we have to, because these changes can't be stopped. It's bound to happen. I mean, forget about building internet. I personally feel the PC is going to be redundant in the next 3 to 4 years. You'll have the Mircomax smartphone. As career-oriented people, you've got to just take a step back every 2.5 years. And somebody said a beautiful thing to me. He said that no matter how successful your organization is, if you don't reorient the company every 2.5 years, the chances are you're going to be redundant soon.
We got a real sense of how a workplace of the future is going to shape like, and how in the near future some of the fundamentals that we operate in currently are going to be completely shattered, and new ways of working, new structures of organizations, and new roles are going to emerge.
Our ability to deal with these differences, our ability to deal with complexities, and these complexities are poised to grow in Workplace 2020. This is a challenge for all of us in human resources as well as in management practice.